Now I have the honor of introducing to you Dr. Charles Thompson. He started his military career as an 18-year-old private in the Army. After 4 years as a cavalry scout, he transitioned to the infantry and attained the rank of Sergeant First Class prior to his commissioning into the Army Veteran Corps, where he finished his career as a major. He has received a number of awards to include 5 Army Achievement Medals, 3 Army Commendation Medals, and a Meritorious Service Medal. He has earned the Basic Parachutist Badge, the Air Assault Badge, and the Drill Sergeant Badge. In 2009, he answered the call to politics by entering the race for Oklahoma's 2nd Congressional District. After a 6-way primary race and a runoff election, he was narrowly defeated by the incumbent. Since then, he's been focused on his small animal practice in Broken Arrow, and he's the proud father of 4 children and has 2 perfect grandchildren. He spends his free time hunting, fishing, and gardening. Please welcome Dr. Charles Thompson.
Thank you very much. Thank you all so much. I'm going to put this mic up here. Normally, as loudmouth as I am, I don't even need one. If any of you have heard me speak when I was campaigning, you would agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the introduction. I want to say thank you to Charlie Williams for inviting me to be here in the first place. And then, because it is very obvious that you're interested in what's going on, I want to say thank you. Because without people being involved, our legislature, whether it be at the county level, the city level, the state level, the federal level, if we do not voice our opinions and say what is important to us, number one, they won't know. Number two, they won't care. We must speak up, and this is part of the process of speaking up right here. So, and by the way, the previous speaker, be real easy to tag along with the Constitution about the right to life. I think it's very clear that our founders were very much in favor of freedom and the right to life. It's all over the Declaration of Independence, all in the Constitution as well. So nonetheless, when I was invited, I was told that it was the spirit of America. And as elementary as it might sound, I asked myself a simple question: what is exactly the spirit of America? I spent 25 years in the Army. What is the spirit of America? And I thought, well, there's a lot of places that you could get that. You know, there's another veterinarian by the name of Baxter Black who wrote a poem called The Flag. And I would read it here, but I've got it on my phone and I can't see my screen. But it's a very inspiring poem. I encourage you to look it up. It's all about the flag and how the flag has flown and done so much. And it's been torn in two in various wars and by various protests and so on. But it's still our flag, and it represents us as a country. We could easily, to determine the spirit of America, we could easily look to the national anthem, which was sang so wonderfully just a minute ago. There's so much inspiration, and it indicates what the spirit of America really is. But I have to tell you that for me personally, the place that I look to determine the spirit of America is in this document. Our founders wrote this document, 4,000 words approximately, depends on whether you read those things in parentheses or not, but roughly 4,000 words. In the beginning, they wrote the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. We have this document that says they're going after liberty. And I even went so far as to get in a thesaurus, and I looked up the word liberty. Exact translation is freedom. There's the spirit of America. The freedom to stand here and do what we're doing right now. The freedom to contact our representatives wherever they might be. The freedom to voice our opinion. It's the freedom that we have that is the spirit of America. Now, another thing that really impresses me about the Constitution is the fact that right after they wrote the preamble, they wrote the very first sentence of the Constitution, which is the binding part of it. The preamble was why we're writing it and what we hope to accomplish. The very first sentence was the binding part of this. All legislative power shall be vested in a House and a Senate of the United States of America. All legislative powers. Nobody else gets to write the rules. The rules are written by the legislation, by the Congress. So, obviously, they went on further. They gave us more freedoms, and in the process of giving us the freedoms, what they did in this document was they constrained the government. They constrained the government by writing in Article 1, Section 8, the 15 things that Congress has the authority to do. They constrained the government in Section 2, or Article 2, rather, of the things that the president can and cannot do. They went on through here, one page after another, one incredibly valuable word after another, and they finally got to the first 10 amendments. And we all know the history. The Constitution would have never made it had it not been for the first 10 amendments that were added to it. Because people for freedom. They had had enough of tyranny. They wanted more freedom, and I think today we just got through with what felt like 8 years of tyranny. If we can get Congress, if we can get the president, and I don't think this is going to be a problem with the president, if we can get them to understand that Article 1, Section 8 is very clear in what Congress has the authority to do, and Amendment 10 says that anything's not in Article 1, Section 8 goes back to the states or the people. End of story. So I'll apologize up front. I haven't even got started on my speech yet. One of the things that I wanted to do first, and I get sidetracked so easily. One of the things I wanted to do first was to thank our veterans. I always feel very self-serving. I always feel very self-serving when I say that because I did spend a long time in, but there are so many that went before me and so many that have come after me that have done so much more than I have, and I am indebted to each and every one of you. The sacrifices are just absolutely unbelievable. You can just get on the internet and read story after story after story of what our veterans, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, what they are doing day in and day out from the dawn of our country, before our country, all the way to today. So thank you, veterans. Thank you to the families of the veterans, because your sacrifice is noted as well. Well, I'll kind of switch gears here a little bit. One of the things that has gotten Donald Trump in a lot of hot water has been the wall with Mexico. I want to tell you that I personally support a wall with Mexico. Actually, I have been to the border working with the Border Patrol. I decided in 2008 that, if I believe that there's a problem on the border, I should shut my mouth and actually do something about it. So in 2008, I looked at all the various different groups that the liberals will call the vigilantes, by the way. And so I found one. It was called the Texas Border Volunteers. Got in touch with them, and they seemed like a bunch of good people. And so I went down to the border, and I got to experience firsthand what's going on down there. And I can assure you that it is not what the liberals want you to think it is. These are not just a bunch of good people that are coming in. They're not just coming in to pick fruit. There are a lot of bad people, and I think I'm quoting Donald Trump here. There are a lot of bad people that are crossing that border. When I was there, I was fortunate in one respect, because when I was there, we didn't actually capture a bunch of bad guys. And so I was kind of grateful, because I'm kind of a chicken, to be honest with you. I didn't want to get a bunch of these guys. However, I was told about 2 weeks before me that they had captured a group of young men about 20 years old or so. They didn't have tattoos with a Z. They were actually branded with a Z. They were branded with a Z. meaning the Zetas. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Zetas, but they are some very bad boys. Okay? These guys were actually branded with a Z. They were not coming to pick fruit. They were coming to destroy our way of life, one small piece at a time. So if I can, actually I remember some statistics off the top of my head, so I'll not bore you too terribly much. Fiscal year 2016, there were over 400,000 detainees, if you will, apprehensions on the border. And I'm talking just the, no, I take that back. Across our northern border, our ports of entry, and our southern border, 415,000, give or take a few. 222,000, just over half, 54% in fact, were people who were coming from other countries. If you dig deeper into that, you will find that a very large percentage of that 54% are people who are coming from Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. None of these people are coming here to pick fruit. They are not going out of their way to come into Mexico and get smuggled across the border so that they can pick fruit. They're not coming from Iran for that. There's not enough money in picking fruit for that. We must do whatever we can to build a wall with Mexico. We have to. We absolutely must. So I'm going to bash on the Republicans here for just a minute. I was a Republican, and as mentioned, I was in 2010. I was the Republican nominee for 2nd Congressional District here in Oklahoma. I ran against Dan Boren, and I think it was a narrow defeat, but nonetheless, I didn't get a whole lot of support from the Republicans because I really didn't toe the Republican line, and I'm not going to do that today either. Prior to, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I'm not going to toe the Republican line. Because General Washington, when he was President Washington, he was leaving office, and in his final farewell speech to Congress, or in his farewell speech, not his final one, in his farewell speech to Congress, he warned us, don't get wrapped up in the parties. The parties will destroy the nation. George Washington said it. I think George Washington is a pretty good example to follow. And so while I was campaigning, I tried as much as I could to follow him. He said, don't get wrapped up in the party. I said, okay, President Washington, I won't get wrapped up in the party. And I told the Republicans that I was not a toe-the-line kind of guy. Prior to Donald Trump being elected, the Republicans had more than enough opportunity. They controlled the House and the Senate. They could have wielded a lot of power, and they could have built a wall. They didn't want to. They didn't want to. And the reason I say that is because here in 2009, I met John Boehner, Pete Sessions, and several others here in Tulsa. I asked John Boehner the question in public, a crowd probably half this size. And he had not yet been elected as Speaker of the House, but every indication was that he would be elected Speaker of the House. So I asked him, I said, Mr. Speaker, can you tell me, and I introduced myself, I'm Charles Thompson, blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me, when I get to Washington and I'm representing the people of 2nd District in Oklahoma, what are we as the Republican Party going to do about illegal immigration across our southern border? I didn't know John Boehner could dance, but he could. He came nowhere even close to answering the question. Not only that, the other senior leader Republicans that were in that audience, they looked at me as if I had grown another head. Why in the world would you ask that question? I asked the question because the people in my district needed to know. The people in my district were losing jobs to illegals. I wanted to know because I planned on representing them in Congress. But the leadership, the Republican leadership in Congress at that time, didn't want to deal with it. Now the Republicans are standing up there, and they're as tough as anybody on the planet because they have a lion leading the lambs. there are countless quotes that you can find on the internet that Donald Trump has made. And I won't bore you to tears, but I do want to share a few quotes from Trump's predecessor, and then I want to switch gears and share just a couple that Donald Trump has said. So, let me get to my notes here. This is one of my favorites. The rituals, and we're talking about the Islamic rituals, the rituals remind us of the principles that we hold in common and Islam's role in advancing justice, progress, tolerance, and the dignity of all human beings. Now, I'm going to venture a guess here and say that y'all probably know who said that. All right? That was Barack Obama when he was president of the United States. I have a question for, and this sounds very targeted, and I don't mean it, but I have a question for the ladies in this audience. How many are in favor of the tolerance that you would receive under an Islamic rule of law? I see a bunch of thumbs going down. Now I'll ask the men. How many of you men are interested in the so-called tolerance that your wives, your daughters, your female friends would have to endure? Bad idea. I'll tell you right now, there is not a woman that I know that I want her to be forced to wear a headscarf or to wear a curtain. The women that I know, whoever they are, I want them to have the same thing that I am after, and that's freedom. The women that I know, I want them to have the freedom to choose. Do I put on a pair of boots today, or do I put on a pair of sandals? This is not tolerance, this Islamic thing. I watched a video once. It was wintertime. My heart breaks watching this. This video, it was wintertime. It was in an Islamic country. There was a woman, she had on all of her Islamic garb, but she also had on a thick red coat. It was cold. All the men who surrounded her were in heavy coats. They shot the woman. They shot her in the head. I watched her body collapse. They shot her in the head because she wore a coat, because it was cold. Barack Obama, if you can hear me, I want you to explain how that is tolerance. My next quote was just a simple one here. Islam has a proud tradition of tolerance. I guess I've already beaten that horse to death. But I wrote another note on this little card. You know, I'm not in favor of homosexuality. I'll tell you right now. But I am in favor of freedom. What you do in your bedroom is your business. I am in favor of freedom. Now, let me ask you about the tolerance that Islam has for homosexuality. None. I'm sure we've all seen the videos of the homosexuals who have been thrown off the buildings. All right? I don't think that was their choice. I don't think if they had had the freedom, I don't think they would have volunteered for that. And here's another one of my favorites. You know, I guess I'll confess, Barack Obama was not my favorite president. The sweetest sound I know is the Muslim call to prayer. You know, I got to tell you right now, the sweetest sound I know, or at least some of the sweetest sounds I know, the national anthem. America the Beautiful. What about Amazing Grace? What about these songs, these sweetest sounds that I know that have built this nation? These songs that have inspired countless generations of Americans to stand up and want to do more for their country. Those are some of the sweetest sounds I know. However, our former president, the sweetest sound that he knew was the Islamic call to prayer. Islam is not conducive to our way of life. There is no way. You cannot have the First Amendment that we have and have Islamic rule at the same time. Impossible. You cannot have the Second Amendment and have Islamic rule at the same time. You can't have the Constitution. You can't have anything that we have in this country right now with Islam being in control. You cannot do it. This is what happens whenever your hands get dry. The future. My goodness, I can't imagine that a man that once led our nation, can't imagine that he would say this. The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. The Prophet of Islam, his name was Muhammad. We all know that. The Prophet of Islam started off being about half crazy, and he ended up about 99% crazy. Right. If you really do an in-depth study of Muhammad, you'll find out that he had temporal lobe epilepsy, and this is where he had all of his visions from his angels and so on. He started out the Islamic religion. He pared down the religion from being multi-theistic down to monotheistic, and Allah was the God that he chose. There were several others that he could have chosen, but he chose Allah, the moon god. And then he said, anybody who doesn't agree with me, we got a big problem. And he started his campaign of this religion in the form of violence. So the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. So in other words, let me flip this around, Mr. Obama. The future must belong to those who support the Prophet of Islam. Okay, I'm not in favor of anyone ever sitting in the White House again who has this kind of an attitude. I want to just contrast that a little bit. And I'll tell you, I was going to touch on our economy today, but I don't think there's really enough time, and I'm sure y'all don't want to be too terribly depressed. I will say this very briefly. We are just a hair shy of $20 trillion in debt. I've done quite a bit of looking into that. How do we get out of this mess? Long story short, folks, we don't. Okay? From a financial perspective, and I hate to be a negative Nancy here, but from a financial perspective, there's no mathematical way to get out of this situation that we're in financially. Now, I do believe without a doubt that Donald Trump is going to help. There's no question in my mind. However, I don't think he's going to be able to fix it. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. And we can go back to bashing Democrats or Republicans. We need to go back to bashing them both, because they've both been part of the problem. So I guess I do want to flip this back around and show you that I do actually support Donald Trump. I voted for him, I'm proud to say. And I'll tell you, I really, really like Donald Trump. If you read about him, the man is incredibly intelligent. And on the campaign trail, he wasn't exactly the smoothest cat around, but he knows what he knows, and he knows how to get what he wants. All right? And what he wants, he even said in one of his quotes, and I can't remember the exact quote, but he even said, what I'm all about now is saving the country. That's what he said in a nutshell. Prior to his campaign, what he was all about was making money. That was his job. He was an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He was all about making money. What person who owns a business isn't about making money? If you own a business, you have to make money. And I am not a liberal. I'm all for him making as much money as he can, because the more money he makes, the more jobs he offers to somebody else. I don't understand this whole concept of we need to destroy the wealthy so that everybody can be brought up. I can't bring that one. I can't get my brain wrapped around that one. All right, so anyway, I do support him 100%. I do think as American citizens, American citizens, we make up this nation. Donald Trump does not make up this nation. Congress does not make up this nation. We, the people, make up this nation. We, the people, cannot sit back on our laurels and let Donald Trump get away with anything that he wants. Because if we do, we have failed. This is not Donald Trump's country. This is our country. And it's our responsibility, whether it's Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan, whether it's the Pope, whether it's whoever's sitting in that White House, it is our responsibility. Your responsibility, your responsibility, your responsibility, my responsibility. We, the people, hold them accountable. So again, I am in favor of Donald Trump, but I'm in favor of the Constitution and we the people first and foremost. So we will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. We will make America great again, greater than ever before. Those are words of a man who is passionate about his country. Those are words of a man who loves his country. There's another quote that says, I love my country. Donald Trump is a true American patriot. He loves this country. End of story. He went on to say the American dream. And remember what our founders said in the preamble. Liberty. The American dream is freedom, prosperity, peace, and liberty and justice for all. Dreams require perseverance if they are to be realized. Donald Trump is our president, and you know what? We got a great president.
Christian Republicans, you're lower than earthworm.
That's a good point. Is the Tulsa world here? Folks, I want to say thank you. There's a lot that I didn't say that I had in notes, but I just don't want to bore you to tears. I know there's just tens of thousands of things that we could talk about, but I do want to say thank you. It is a tremendous honor to stand in front of you, to represent, in my way of thinking, to represent Donald Trump and to represent the Constitution. I see this flag waving. I hope I represent the flag to you. I believe very much in our country, and I believe once again that we, the people, can turn this thing around. Thank you so much.